So here we go, the start of a long journey and a rather long video review, I reckon. I don't know how long it is when I'm shooting this, but I reckon it's gonna be, well, probably well over an hour or more. And this is generally how I like to start off my videos, showing the knife in great detail in all its beauty. So my latest acquisition here from TRC Knives is the, and I don't know how to pronounce it because my French is not the best, but I think it's called the Mille Cuori or Mille Cuori. I'm probably gonna call it something else for the rest of my video, since I can't fully pronounce it. Regardless of its name or the pronunciation of the name, this is a pretty solid knife with some pretty amazing craftsmanship, as always, when we're talking about knives made by Andreas and his team. I'm not going to go into the full specs or anything. I'm saving that to make the unboxing part more meaningful. So that is when we will go over the specs. But you can still look at all the nice details here. I will say that this is probably not my typical knife to go with. I think I only have one other knife with a DLC coating on it, and tactical, military use, etc. is not really my main focus, but I bet this knife can do a lot more than that. And I also think that a military knife should be able to handle a ton of different tasks, so I have pretty high expectations of what I can do with this knife. But right now, like I stated, I just want you to be able to look at it in a nice setting before we start doing some random tasks with it. Maybe, admire the DLC coating while it's still on. I do think I read and saw somewhere that the DLC coating used for this model is actually pretty tough, and it won't vanish or scrape off easily. But I guess we'll see that after some extended or extensive use. I mean, this is not a safe queen to me, as you will notice later on in this video. But let's appreciate it for what it is right now. Here we have it, my latest TRC acquisition. You have already seen this because I always start my videos with some nice clips of the knife in a fitting environment. But I know that an unboxing video is to be expected, so I always include it in my full reviews. And as I always state with the knives from TRC and Andreas, the box is actually quite nice, so it's not, it doesn't feel bad having a segment where you actually show it, and not just the box, also the contents of the box. As you already knew from the title of the video and from the first clip, we are taking a look at let's see if we can get the focus going on here. So the TRC, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce this one, but I guess it's going to be like Mille Cuori or Mille Cuori. Not quite sure. Maybe I can just say MC for short. That would make my life, or this video at very least, a lot easier. As you can see here, it's made from Vanadis 4 Extra, and it's going to be DLC coated. Black canvas micarta handle, Kydex sheath as usual, and the serial number of this one is 344. So the box itself, this is sort of the standard box with the knives from TRC, and the standard is high. It's a high standard. So opening the box, we will find, aside from the knife itself, I'm gonna find some small stickers, TRC sticker, some ballistol universal oil for the blade, and the small knife booklet, which is also something that is included with, I guess, every knife from TRC, at least the knives that I have. Then again, I only have the South Pole and the Apocalypse, but they all came with a knife-specific folder or booklet. So in this one, you will be able to read about the creator, the designer, the maker, which is Andrews. A few words from him. You will be able to read a little bit about the specific knife that you bought. In my case, the MC, I'm gonna call it now for short. You can read some about the thoughts about the design, the intended purpose and tasks, etc. This being a very, I know I'm sort of allergic to the term tactical, but this is indeed a tactical knife with a military intended use, sort of. We'll get into that more later, since this is just the unboxing part. You can also read a bit about material used, etc., and so on. You can also read about how to maintain your knife in the best way. Then we have probably some info about the lifetime warranty, which is something that you also get with every knife you buy, made by TRC. Last but not least, you should have the certificate of authenticity, which states a few things about your very specific knife, like serial numbers, date, and steel used, etc. And a random thought about the steel here. You can see it's this Vanadis 4 Extra. I have no personal experience with that steel, so I'm really curious about it. I have heard about it being sort of like sharing certain properties with CPM 4V. And to be honest, I don't have much experience with that steel either, but I expect it to be, a pretty tough steel with some really good edge retention. Probably not the most corrosion resistant steel, but then again we have the DLC coat on, so probably shouldn't be an issue to begin with. Anyway, let's head back here to the box itself. Just gonna try to fix a little like that. So what do we have here? Here we have the knife in its handmade Kydex sheath. I expect the retention to be really good, since in my opinion, TRC makes some of the absolute best Kydex sheaths that I've ever seen. The sheath design and the strap here is a bit different from the from the Apocalypse and the South Pole, and I guess I'm gonna make a comparison video of the different knives and sheath, so we don't have to go into those sort of details right now. But here we can at least trying to get the camera, there we go, working. This is what it looks like out of the box. Sweet. So, oops. Here we have the knife itself. Yes, as you can see, it is a full tang construction. Got some I'm not sure how to say it, but like a reinforced tip of sorts, sort of a swedge going on here. Not super thin at that. And like I said, the steel used is the Vanadis 4E. E stands for extra. The overall length of this knife is, I believe, 265 millimeters. So 26.5 centimeters in total length. The actual blade length is, I believe, 132 millimeters. So 13.2 centimeter in blade length. The spine thickness is 4.5 millimeters. So it's fairly, somewhat thick spine. Not you know, not too thick, to be honest, which I like. And the weight of the knife is, I believe, it's about 270. I think the exact number is 275 grams, but around there somewhere. You have the full specs in the beginning of the video, and you will have the full specs in the end of the video as well. So we have some jimping going on here. Not sure how well it can be seen. For some extra grip, and as usual we have this textured micarta. I can sort of get a feeling just like that. Then again, I mean I use gloves most of the time when I use my knives, but I find this texture to be pretty nice. It's the same texture on my South Pole, and it's not quite the same texture on the Apocalypse, but in the comparison video segment we will go through that regardless. And like I said, it's a full tang construction. So that is what it looks like out of the box. And the Kydex sheath, I think we're gonna take a closer look at it later on, but this is what it looks like. So there's no fire steel hole or anything with it. I mean, this is not your typical bushcraft knife at that. And like I said, this system is a bit different than what I've seen on other knives made by TRC, but it will make it more easy to get on and off, and make it more accessible, if that is actually a word. So what we're gonna do now is that we're gonna try a lot of different things out with this knife. We're gonna do some testing both indoors and outdoors, mostly outdoors, I will say. Once again, this is not a bushcraft knife or a typical camp knife or anything, but we're gonna do those sorts of tasks regardless. We're gonna do some food prepping, we're gonna do some different types of wood processing, carving, batoning, some light chopping as well. We're gonna do feather sticks. We're also gonna, do some random paper slicing, magazine slicing. I'm gonna do as much different things as I can with this knife, even though I understand it is not a all-around camp knife. But I am pretty confident you can use it for a lot of things. It feels, I kind of miss the choil a little. The South Pole doesn't have a choil; it has the finger groove. But the Apocalypse has this choil, and picking this one up, I felt like I was missing it a little, but I'm not sure how much I'm actually gonna miss it when I start using the knife. I mean, it doesn't feel bad or wrong or anything. It just feels a bit strange because I'm so used to finger grooves and choils on my knives from TRC, even though I only have 2 of them. What we can take a look at here now, by the way, is actually the handle. I have size 10 in gloves, and this handle is it's a pretty long handle. It's very comfortable. If you have big hands, it's gonna work really well. Your thumb goes pretty well on top of the blade like this. Yeah, I can't wait to put this one to some serious work. I don't know how many reviews there are on YouTube here of this knife. There's probably 1 or 2, but I haven't seen that much about it, so it's gonna be an interesting experience. So I think this does it for the unboxing part. Now you know what to expect when you get your very own knife from TRC, whether it is the Mille Cuori or the Apocalypse or South Pole. This is what you can expect. So the most boring part of the video is over. Let's head out. In this short segment, we're going to take a look at the Apocalypse, the name, which name I can't really pronounce, but I'm gonna call the Mille Cuori right now, and the South Pole, and do some sort of comparison. I wasn't originally planning on doing this in this video review, but I did do a small comparison with the South Pole and Apocalypse in my South Pole review, because I thought it was kind of interesting. Not that the designs are super similar in any way, but I thought it was just an interesting thing to do, and I'm fairly sure I'm gonna get some questions about how this knife compares to mostly the Apocalypse, but maybe also to the South Pole. So let's just take a look at them. You have seen the specs for all the 3 knives already, so I'm not gonna go over them again like that, but this is just to make it possible to get a good overview of these knives. So as you can see, they all come with standard sort of handmade Kydex sheets, among the best that I've ever seen. The Apocalypse is the only one that comes with a Kydex fire steel holder. You can of course remove it from this sheath and put it on either 2 of these. This is what the backside, let's see, of the sheaths look like. and we can see that there are different belt holders. We have this textile-based belt holder on the Apocalypse, as well as on the South Pole. Very, you know, well, pretty much identical designs of short. Then we have the Mille Cuori sheath, which is a bit different. It has this, I don't know fully what material this is. Some plastic-like, does feel really strong and durable, and I bet it is. So the design works like this, that you can pretty easily button up this like that, and like that. You remove it. See how it feels like that. Then you put it on the belt. You pull this strap back here. Then put the button on like that. So it does make it a bit more somewhat easier to put on and off compared to these ordinary belt holders. So that is it about the sheaths. Let's take a look at actual knives inside the sheath. Let's start with the biggest first, being the Apocalypse. Second biggest one being the Mille Cuori, and the third and final one being the South Pole. See, I think I'm gonna adjust the camera a bit to have it zoom in a little. So there we go. Now we have knives in somewhat better detail. So as we can see, the Apocalypse is indeed a larger knife. Got a bit more blade length, but I mean, given the choil, the actual cutting length is not that, you know, extremely much longer. And the South Pole being, yeah, a fair bit smaller. The handle of the Mille Cuori here, you can see, is actually quite on par with, or even longer than the one on the Apocalypse. Then again, you do have the choil, so that gives you a bit extra place, or extra space, I should say. I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna, in which detail I'm going to go in here, but we can compare, for example, the blade thickness. Let's remove this for a second. Once again, I'm not sure how well this can be seen, but as you can see from the specs and also in this footage, the blade thickness is quite a lot thicker on the Apocalypse. We do have this nice swedge going on here on the Apocalypse, but on the other hand, we also got this not as distinct of a swedge, but still a sort of a swedge here on the Mille Cuori. And we also have the South Pole, which is more in the same league. I think to me it looks kind of identical. I didn't look at the specs right now, but the spine thickness does look to be quite equal on the South Pole. South Pole, of course, being the much smaller knife, both in blade length and handle length as well, and with its very pronounced finger groove, which the this one lacks. There is no finger groove and there is no choil. Still a comfortable knife, a very much so comfortable knife. Let's see if this is visible, like that. So this is just, just a random, a chance to get a random look at the different blades and their different sheaths. Quite different designs, all three of them, both in regards of handle design and blade design, etc. Yeah, I think this will be it for the comparison. So, as many of you know, I kind of like to test the sharpness of my knives before I head out and start doing some real field tests of any sort. So this is how sharp the knife is out of the box. I have not, tempered with the, with the edge or anything. I've not done any stropping or sharpening in any way. So what you see here is what you get out of the box, like that. So I think that is fairly good for regular printing paper. Let's see. And in regards of thickness or anything, I mean this is what printing paper is or feels like. So but we can head on to some magazine paper instead. Slice a bit more here. Yeah, let's try some magazine paper instead. So it's time to test the sharpness on some magazine paper instead, which is a thinner, lighter type of paper, which could make it a bit interesting. I mean, I sort of already know if we'll cut through this, since it performed pretty good on the printing paper. But let's do this now, and let's see if we can find a good angle to show this in the camera. Maybe like, actually maybe sort of like this. Yep. Not too bad. Let's see if we can get some more here. I would say that this is sufficiently sharp. You can of course improve with the strop if you want to, make it even sharper. Then again, I mean, how sharp do you want your knives to be to begin with, depending on what you want to do. To me this is quite sufficient, so I say it passes the sharpness test. Let's see if we can make some random feathers. Not your typical, bushcraft knife or anything, but we'll see what we can accomplish. Yeah. So I mean, it's not that bad. It may not be like not the absolute best either, but it's definitely sufficient if you want to get some feathers and curls here to get a fire going. Absolutely. Let's see if you can get some more feathers from this slightly thicker piece of wood. So, I mean, once again, it may not be the finest feathers, but I mean, it will help start a fire regardless. So, all in all, I mean, it's not the best feathers, but absolutely in no way is it the worst. I mean, this will work just fine with some fire steel. So, I mean, this is not a problem at all. This will work. Absolutely. So we are now out in the middle of the woods, and I thought we could start doing some real field tests with this one. We have a few different kinds of trees and woods here. I did not cut these trees down myself. They were like this. I found them like this. As you can see, I am surrounded by trees that has fallen over. I do not find any enjoyment cutting down healthy living trees. But when they are like this, then they make for prime examples for branching and small chopping, etc. And I will take the chance when I find trees like this. So we're gonna start with this one. It's just quite big actually. Not sure how much you can see in the camera, but this is a big piece of a tree. And when I'm finished, there's gonna be no branches left on it because we're gonna debranch the entire tree. So let's get to work. I'm not quite sure where I'm standing in the camera, but I hope you can see some of the things I'm trying to do at least. Is this even visible in the camera right now? Not quite sure. Slowly but surely. Slowly but surely. There we go. Almost. So this was quite a workload to branch. Man. And the knife is starting to look a bit like a user now, huh? See. You know, I'm not really sure how well this was recorded, if you can even see what I'm doing. But branching that piece of tree was, I mean, I'm not super tired, but it was still kind of a lot of work. And not only because of, you know, using a small knife, but because the piece of tree itself was actually semi-tough to work with. I think my next piece will be a bit drier or something. There is no damage to the actual edge. I didn't bring any paper, so I can't. I did not bring any, you know, printing paper, so we can't do any slicing tests right away. That would be interesting. I think it's still as sharp as it was to begin with, although the dirt here might make it less smooth when cutting through paper. The coating seems to be holding up pretty good. I wasn't expecting anything else, since we are only working with wood right now. We're not cutting any sorts of steel or anything. Then we can start talking about removal of the DLC coating. But I'm gonna see if I can find some other nice piece of wood or trees here. Like I said, there is a ton of it laying around here, so I should be able to find, well, something else than what I just cut up here, which was, is it called fir? I don't know. I don't know the English word for it, but I will try some other woods now. So I think I have found my next victim of sorts. Not quite sure what type of wood this is, but doesn't matter. Also kind of fresh. Something to baton with there, so let's see if we can. this off then enough. This is kind of thick, maybe. I'm gonna have to lower the camera if I'm gonna do this part. Let's see. See if I can get some good semi close-ups. So this was, I'm not quite sure about the thickness, but you know, semi tough. The blade looks a bit dirty, almost rusty, but it's of course not rust. Holy crap, this side looked even worse. But I think the edge is quite alright. Got some semi-good chops in. I think I'm gonna switch over to some birch, which should be the easiest material to cut through. And the two types of woods we have done now are not the easiest. Birch should be. So I'm gonna go and find a piece of birch, probably a thicker piece than this, and then we can do some close-up chopping of it. So I found this piece of birch. The only problem is that it is like 6 meters long. So I think I have to cut in half before I can mow it close up to the camera. But let's see if we can. I'm gonna have to let's see if we can actually cut it in half. Move the camera here. Start by chopping it in the middle, and then we can then I can lift it up for battle angle. But this is let's just start with this now. This one is also kind of fresh. I think it should be kind of breakable now. Or I can just chop it through entirely, just because. There we go. This should make it a lot easier. Man, it's still quite large. You know what? Maybe we should actually chop one more side off a bit. Still kind of large. You know what, I'm gonna grab some water real fast. I guess we could do a tip test as well. Yeah, let's chop it up and then we can do the tip test. Let's see if we can get even closer, maybe. Since we are now making a thing out of this. Maybe even zoom in a bit. There we go. So this is fairly fresh birch, which is a soft wood type, European soft wood. Still takes some effort cutting through with a knife of this size, but it is doable, as you are going to see quite soon. But this time I might just break it off with my foot when we've come like half through or two-thirds of the way. I will say that I can't really go all in with my full strength because I actually had a small axe related incident some weeks ago, or is it maybe like 2 months away now, where I accidentally cut my right hand. So I have not my full strength as of yet, and I know I did not cut myself actually working with the axe. I was already finished with all the work, I was just packing it away. So that is why I also cut myself on my right hand, because I was holding the axe in my left hand going to pack it down. So that is why I can't go full chopping strength, for those of you who wonder. Oh, I should have looked at the back side of it first. This is not very good, but it is what it is now. So I wonder if I'm not going to be able to break it up with my foot. We're going to have to use a bit more chopping before we can actually just snap it off. But I think we can break it off with the strength of a foot. Now we might as well just cut through. Man, that was a small workout. Not super bad. I mean, I'm not really, fatigued or anything, but I can definitely feel a bit in my arm. I think I need maybe a bit more muscles, or better technique, or both. Let's do some other small chopping, but not in this way. Let's see, remove this one, and then we get this one standing instead. We have one of the pieces of birch. Gonna do some light branching, delimbing, and then we're gonna cut it in half. There we go, and now we can do some, let's see, something like that, I don't know. somewhat clean, but also somewhat small. Get some focus here, yeah. Clean but small chops. Did pretty fast work regardless. And the knife is still holding up fairly well. No damage to the edge. No damage to myself either, which is of course always a nice thing. So I think we've done enough chopping now. We know the knife can chop a bit. I usually don't recommend it with a knife as small as this, but being a military all-around knife that should handle, or should be able to handle, most everything, I do expect to be able to do some chopping. Some semi-good focus. Not the easiest of things. So enough chopping for now. We're gonna do some tip testing. Then I'm gonna head home, I think, clean this beast up and start slicing some fruit and vegetables, because I always do that in my videos as well. See if I'm gonna have to put it on the strop before I do it. Not sure, I don't think I will have to, but we will see. Should probably do a paper slicing test when I get home as well, see how well it held up. But first things first, it's time for the super, in my opinion, unnecessary tip test. So before we actually start hitting the tip and trying to break it, let's take a look at what the tip actually looks like. As you can see, this is a very stout tip, sort of reinforced as well. This is not a tip that will break. And we also have to remember that this steel is Vanadis 4 Extra, which is stronger than Almax. And I've already done tip testing with my Apocalypse and with my Southpole, and we both know how well those tips held up. So I would be super surprised if we saw any damage whatsoever to the tip of this not so fine looking knife. Man, it really looks like shit right now. But well, it doesn't matter. Let's start this. Do we have? Yeah, we actually have some nice focus from the get-go. See, maybe I should zoom in even more, I'm not sure. So, where do we have the tip right now? Let's see if we can get some focus on it. Maybe not. So the tip is totally and utterly undamaged. And the funny thing is that it actually looks better than the rest of the knife, because shoving it down in the tree there and doing like I did actually cleaned off some of that sap and dirt from the chopping. Well, at least on this side it did. So this tip, it ain't going anywhere. So I just decided that we're not gonna go back home right away. We're gonna make a spear-shaped wood piece thing here out of this piece of birch. Yep. See if we have any sharpness left in this knife. It seems plenty sharp, to be honest. It's actually not bad at all. So I'm not expecting the edge retention to be as good as on the as good as LMAX, but then again, I mean, this knife steel is also a very what should I say, a knife with very good edge retention as well. It's probably easier to sharpen than LMAX 2, but I mean, I haven't tried yet. I have no personal experience. But I do bet that this knife will be easier to sharpen than my LMAX knives. So how thin should we make it? Maybe we should go into some, oops, I didn't even realize I wasn't in camera, but this is where we are right now with, you know, and I think I'm gonna do some super fine curls up here, so we're gonna need to zoom in a bit when I do that. Yeah, let's see. Not easy with the focus. And how are we gonna stay in focus? Damn, focus. Not easy. Oops. Actually not too bad. I like when you can do like really hard chopping with a knife and then you can just sit down and do the finest precision work. Yeah, I think we're gonna start heading back now. It is also starting to get a little bit dark, but now you have seen some hard work, some chopping, some tip testing. I guess we haven't done any batoning. Should we do that before heading home? I'm not quite sure. Then I need to chop up a lot of small pieces of wood that I can use. I should have brought a small axe with me, or a hatchet. Big mistake. You know what? I'm gonna do that later. There will be batoning, but not right away. Or well, it will be right away in the video review, I guess, because that should be natural thing after this. So I guess that if you just wait for a few more minutes, you will see some batoning. Over and out from the woods. So I'm not the biggest fan of batoning. I know it is expected and that's why we are gonna do it. But I'm gonna do it here at home instead, and I'm not gonna spend a lot of time doing it. Also my battery is running out. So let's just get this started. this was a tough piece. Totally not worth it. I think that will have to do for now. So as I promised, I just got back home here, and the blade is just the way it was when we were out in the woods not that long ago. And it's time to test the sharpness. After doing all that shit you just saw. I think it is actually holding up pretty good. Not bad at all. I'd say it's doing a pretty good job. So as you can see from the pink cutting board, we are now going to do some random food prep. And this is what we will prepare. Maybe not, all of it, but definitely a little bit of everything. So there we go. And I have cleaned up the blade to the best of my ability. Or maybe actually not to the absolute best of my ability. I could probably have done slightly better cleaning, but it does look a lot nicer than it did the last time you saw this blade in this video. So starting off, I think we should do some tomato food prep. So here we have a few tomatoes. I don't think we're gonna need all of them, but one or two. Let's see what we will do. Maybe I should stand up instead, might be easier. Hope it's not too dark. It's getting dark outside, so yeah, it is what it is. That was maybe a bit on the thin side, too thin. Not really useful. There we go. Let's take another one. Do something with that one. Let's see. That. So, there we go. Yeah, I think that's the tomato race. Let's head on with something else. So next up we have a cucumber. Let's do something with it. So here we have a few different types of sliced up cucumber. Worked fairly well. I mean, it's no kitchen knife, but depending on, well, depending on the context, this could be sufficient in some sense, I reckon. Let's try something else. I think next up we're gonna go with aubergine. I hope I have some, or I know I have some salt and olive oil. It's gonna be nice with this one. Oops, my bad. Let's do like this entirely. Remove it. Get some more. Cutting them sort of too thin right now. It should be, no, skip that. It should be a bit thicker than what I've done. But I just want to to do like this so we can test the sharpness of the knife, or not the sharpness, the sliciness of the knife. Some half mounts. This is way too thin for most of the dishes that I know of. Some small pieces like this, and then we have these just, you know, circular sliced things. So that is the aubergine part. Let's go for the paprika. That's actually a pretty nice looking paprika. Not bad. Not bad. Could have used some water to just get the small seeds out. Let's see. Good enough. So here we have some paprika, either to eat as a snack or to throw into something. So that concludes the paprika slicing. Next up, let's go with maybe we should go with some citrus fruits. We can go with let's go with a lemon. That should be that'll be good. Wait with that one. Smells really good. Makes me want to make some sweet lemonade. some nice way with that one. And there we have some lemons. So it's time for the oranges. Yeah. Some pretty normal orange slices. And some large round slices of orange, just like that. So now we only have 2 different kinds of apples left, I believe. So I'm gonna put this on the plate, and then we're gonna head on with the finale with the apples. We have 1 red apple, or in fact we do have 2 because I have another one there, and we have also 2 green apples. So let's start with any one of them. Yeah, some random slices. This apple was kind of hard to cut. Oops. I have to make an apple pie with these. So sliced up red apple in a bit different sizes, random sizes. Let's go for the green one next, I think. we go. Or almost. There we go. That was a bit better. So now I have some pretty good pieces here. This is more like the pieces for an apple pie, I guess. Other ones are too thick. Too much brute force. So now we have some sliced up pieces of apple, and I think that concludes the main slicing. Now to fit everything on the plate. See if I can manage to do that. This pretty much sums up the food prep part. I'm not saying that this looks, super great or anything, but what I am saying is that this knife is capable of, doing some random food prep, slicing some vegetables and fruits. It is of course no kitchen knife, but that was never, its intended use to begin with. But regardless, you can do stuff like this, and if you have, more skills than I do, then you can probably do this a lot, better. Than I just did. But once again, I just wanted to show you that this knife is capable of doing some random slicing and dicing. So you thought it was over? Yeah, so did I. But we do have still 2 apples left, and maybe I should once again try to improve my apple peeling skills. Not sure this is the right blade for the task, but why not give it a try? See how it goes. I've never ever claimed to be good at peeling apples with a knife. I mean, it's just not something I do. But I like trying things. I'm not even sure why I would want to peel the apples, because I don't have any problem with the skin of the apple. I don't think it tastes bad in any way or so, but I mean, that must be the one reason why people do it. Man, we're almost halfway. This is going sort of better than I expected. Maybe I finally found my ultimate apple peeler knife, or my skill level is actually improving. I haven't done this since the South Pole apple peeling video I did. Maybe I spoke too soon. Is this good enough? Looks sort of good enough to me. Maybe even it out a bit. There we go, a peeled apple. Sweet. I think I did it in like, what? 3 minutes? 2 minutes? Not too bad. Yummy. Oh boy, I won't join you tonight. It is a tad bit too cold for me. But you are welcome to join me up at the campfire when you decide to get up. If you do decide to get up. So here is where I will be spending my night. Going to try to sum up my thoughts about this knife that I got not that long ago. Man, is he having a good time. Yeah. So as I said, I'm gonna try to summarize some of my thoughts about this knife, the design, the use, pretty much everything that I have not yet mentioned in the review. So let's see if I can summarize this now. We have done some fine work, we have done some heavy work, we have done some slicing, we have done some chopping, we have done some batoning, feather sticking, a bit of carving, a little bit of everything, which I think is good for a review of a knife, to see what it is capable of, what it excels in. Thank you, Bolt. First off, we can notice that the DLC coating is pretty much untouched. So I guess it will take some time for it to wear off, if ever. This is just some water that Bolt put on the knife a few seconds ago. Overall, I think this knife has held up great. I have yet to sharpen it, and it's still shaving sharp and paper slicing sharp. Chopping with this was not something I would recommend, but it did perform. I mean, you can chop decent sized or like light to medium or medium sized pieces of wood, even though I don't quite recommend it, but it was like the same with all knives in this size. I didn't get super fatigued. The handle was comfortable using when doing multiple, strikes and chops like that. So that is actually a big plus, the handle ergos. But then again, the ergonomics on all my knives from TRC are pretty awesome. Do you see something you like there, Bolt? I think we should let them be. And that one too. Yeah, slicing, doing food prep with this knife was actually quite nice. I think it performed super well. Peeling an apple, I've never had such great success in peeling an apple with any knife. And I think now I need to switch my hand. Let's see if we can do this. So what I like with this one is the guard. I thought it looked kind of random to begin with when I got the knife or when I saw pictures of the knife, but placing your finger like this on it and the thumb like this is actually, it's quite comfortable, like a pinch grip of sort. Get some out of focus here. Let's see. It's not so easy with the focus. You get a really good grip for some detail or finer work. So big surprise right there. Never thought about I've never had a knife with this sort of design, and I didn't quite get it from looking at the photos, but yeah. But now I do understand the thought behind it. Come on, focus. How do people do this? So like this. Nice grip. I'm gonna switch back to my other hand, make it a bit easier. Let's talk about the steel then. So I've had no issues with the steel. I've had no chips, no microchips, no nothing. The steel is still sharp and it's plenty tough. So I mean, this is I'm gonna have to use it more to be able to speak in greater detail, but right now I think this is a really good steel. I'm not sure what I should compare it to, but absolutely no issues whatsoever. So I guess that some people are probably gonna ask me, like, which knife do you like the most? You have the TRC South Pole, you have the Apocalypse, and now you have the Mille Cuori or Mille Cuori. Oh, whatever this name, however this name is pronounced. I have this knife as well. So which of the three do I like the most? And that is actually a really tough question, because they are all quite different in design and also in intended use. I will say this, that I trust each of these knives. Bolty, would you mind coming back here? Just for a few more minutes. No detours. Come here. So, as I was saying, they're all very different in in design and intended use, and they all have their their respective pros and cons. In my opinion, initially I did like this knife, but I thought that it would never, I would never pick it before the South Pole or the Apocalypse. But having used this one for some time now, I do feel super confident picking this if I was going out for camping, or like an all-around knife to bring with me, because I find that it has a few like a few perks or whatever you want to call it design-wise. So I do trust this knife quite a lot, and it's nice having something in between the South Pole and the Apocalypse, because using the South Pole and using this knife, you really when going for the Apocalypse, you really notice that difference in blade thickness and in the weight of the knife. The Apocalypse feels like a very, very large knife, and I mean I like large knives. I do have a ton of them, but for the last couple of months, I would say, I've been using, you know, lighter and smaller knives. So the Apocalypse did all of a sudden feel quite heavy, especially when I did the comparison part of this video review. It was very, you know, noticeable, the you know, the difference in just overall feel, not just the actual number, you know, the weight, but also the, you know, the feel of knife, you know, how to use it. I mean, the Apocalypse is quite a beast, you know, for its size, compared to this one and the Southpaw. There are of course a ton of other knives that make the Apocalypse seem like, you know, the smallest of knives. So but sometimes, you know, sometimes you want to go with something really, you know, sturdy, and sometimes you might want to go with a lighter option, and with the Southpaw you might want to go with a smaller option. When I did the Southpaw review, and it was actually at this very location. I didn't have Bolt with me that time around, and I was back in, I think, sometime in February. It was pretty cold when I was out there. I came to the conclusion that I would have picked the Southpaw over the Apocalypse in most cases, and that was probably because it is like a smaller, lighter knife that can still do a lot of things. And I guess that's sort of the case with this one as well. I mean, it's something in between, which I like. But picking one of the three is pretty much impossible regardless. I'm never gonna have to make that, you know, absolute choice that I can only own one of them, since I already have all three. But I'm sure I'm gonna have a tougher time picking which knife to bring with me when going out for camping, etc. I will say though that, I mean, even though this knife has some DLC coating on it, if I would go to some place with very high humidity and salt water and stuff like that, I am pretty sure I will pick an Elmax option over the Vanadis 4 Extra. But that is about it. I have to put some more wood on the fire there. This is a nice knife, no doubt. Fun trying out a new steel. As you can see, the coating is intact. I'm gonna fix a little with the fire here, and then I might make like one final clip for this video review. So it's getting a bit dark, and I'm not sure how well anything can be seen in the camera, regardless of focus or not. I'm not sure what more I can say, to be honest, that I haven't already said or done in the video review. See if I can get a knife out with my left hand. A lot easier with my right. There we go. So in conclusion, this knife did surprise me in a good, positive way. It will see a lot of use, but the competition with the TRC Southpaw and Apocalypse, and you know, a few other knives that I own with other brands, it's gonna be, you know, a really tough competition. I will say that I think that TRC makes some of the finest knives I have ever seen and owned. And I remember I said it with my first one, the Apocalypse. I said it with the Southpaw as well, and I'm saying it once again with this one. Also, the handle ergonomics is just incredible in my opinion. This is a fantastic knife. It will see a lot of use in the future. Like I said with South Pole, I hope I will be able to make a follow-up video in like a year or something with some new thoughts and you know, conclusions of sorts. It's way too dark to actually see anything like that. Bolt, do you have anything more to say? No? Bolt? Sup, dude? False alarm? Or we've seen like 2 or 3 beavers tonight, but you're not too interested in them, are you? Well, I think my final words is that you know, if you like high quality knives, if you've been checking this knife out, if you have felt unsure about, you know, certain aspects of the design, do not hesitate, because this knife will perform just as well as any other knife from Andreas and his team, which means they will perform quite excellent. Now I'm gonna sit here and enjoy the last flames of my campfire. I'm not gonna go for a swim with Bolt, but I might let him go for one final swim before we start heading back home again. Over and out for this time.